Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. On Mondays, I usually have a guest that is either an advocate for mental health, a professional in the mental health space, or somebody that has a lived experience and now does something as related to the mental health space. Yesterday, if you missed it, we had a special that we ran on E360 TV. It was Embracing Hope, Strengthening Mental Resilience on World Suicide Prevention Day. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, go back and watch. It was incredible. The speakers that we had yesterday were incredible. So take a moment to go watch that if you didn't. And if this happens to be the first time that you are watching, please make sure if you are on YouTube that you mash down that or click the button that says subscribe. If you're watching on any of the streaming platforms like E360 or Roku, Apple, Fire, Amazon, make sure you add this show into your watch list, your wish list, your want to watch later list, whatever it happens to be, so that you don't miss another episode. Every single guest that I have on is incredible. So I wouldn't want you to miss any of those. Today, you get me. I had 5 speakers yesterday on the special that we were able to do, which is really awesome. It's kind of a change of pace to be on the main E360 page and being able to showcase other people versus me or just me, myself. And it was also nice. I had a moment to speak, but not necessarily the focus of yesterday, which is great. So, I do want to talk today because one of my speakers yesterday, actually, 2 of my speakers yesterday, reminded me that today is 9/11. And I think in my brain, I forget because since I've been in the nonprofit space, my hyper focus has been on the National Suicide Prevention Month, which includes Suicide Prevention Week, which includes World Suicide Prevention Day. So all of those things are in September, and notoriously, it has always been the busiest month for BCC Evolution because we're in the mental health and suicide prevention space. Therefore, we do a lot of events during September. And in addition to having this show, I am so hyper focused on the 10th, which is World Suicide Prevention Day, that I often forget about 9/11 until I go onto a social media and somebody's posted about it. But if you're anything like me, you probably remember that day vividly. For me, I was at the time at home. It was in the morning. The person that I was with at that time always turned on the TV in the mornings to watch the news. But it happened to come up. I think that was, yeah, I don't know. Somehow the TV got turned on in the morning, and all of a sudden it was like, what is happening? Trying to get ready for work that day and watching the news as the planes hit the World Trade Center and just seeing the impact and everything that happened that day. I remember like trying to watch, brushing my teeth, trying to take a shower, trying to watch, and I just couldn't believe what I was watching at all whatsoever. I also worked at a restaurant at the time. If any of you have been to or lived in Colorado for quite some time, I worked at Champ's restaurant, which was in Park Meadows area. And I remember we had those big, giant, like jumbo screens that you could, like, it was life size. I mean, it covered one of the whole entire walls in the restaurant. And I remember going in, and of course, as with every day, we have to turn on the TVs, we have to get everything ready for the day. And I remember that it was myself and one other server that was opening that day. And we turned on the TVs and we just sat there. Like we got everything prepped because normally it was a busy day, especially for lunch rush. And we got everything prepped as we were watching, and then we just sat down and we're watching this big giant screen. And I remember it so vividly because one, the screen was huge and they're replaying over and over the when the actual planes like hit the twin towers, and it was just like over again and again, and then when they were coming down. And then we hear about the impact in Washington D.C., and all of these other things were transpiring, and they were worried, and the airspace was shutting down. All of these things are happening, and it's like in giant life size form. So I'll never forget that day because we sat there and sat there and sat there, and we're expecting people to come in, and nobody came in. I think the world was just paralyzed for that moment, not knowing what to do. Obviously, those that were in New York, it was even bigger, or in Washington D.C., it was so much bigger for them because they were in it, living it, real life. And I remember because the person that I opened with that day, his brother actually worked at the restaurant on the very top of the Twin Towers. And he knew that because they're 2 hours ahead of us from Colorado, and he knew that his shift would have been starting right around that time. But it just so happened for whatever reason, and he's freaking out, of course, because the phone lines are down. I mean, there's so many people that are trying to contact others and find their loved ones, and all the phones were just completely shut down for the most part. Like you couldn't get through at all. And so he was freaking out and not being able to talk to his brother. Well, come to find out, his brother actually had called in that day. He wasn't feeling the greatest, and so he was going to go in later. But it just so happened that that small moment in time was when everything happened. And had he went in at the time that he was supposed to and not been late to work, he would have been at the very, very top on the restaurant. And I've heard so many stories over time that are similar to this story, whether they were running late to work, or they were just about to walk in. There has been lots of stories also of those people that died on that day, or had loved ones that died on that day, and they tell their story and they remember them. The reason why I am sharing this with you is because it's one of those vivid memories that we often, as humans, we all had an experience around this specific day. My experience is going to be very different from your experience, and your experience is going to be very different from my experience. Being in Colorado versus being in New York, or being in Washington, D.C., or being on one of those planes, or being in the Twin Towers, or being right outside of the Twin Towers. Everybody's experience was very, very different that day. How we saw what transpired is very, very different. And it's very vivid. And I know that most people that I talk to, they really truly say that. Like it's so vivid that day. I can recall what I was eating, what I was wearing, what I was watching. Like it's one of those moments that's capsulated. That's probably not the right word, but it maybe capsulated in time, and will be something that those of us that were alive, I have to remember that there are some people that didn't or weren't alive at that time and didn't experience it. But those of us that were alive and old enough to comprehend what was happening will forever have that moment in our brains. And that goes into what I want to talk about today specifically, because there is trauma that can be associated with these memories. And maybe we didn't think about it as trauma. Maybe we were like, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the plane. I wasn't in, I wasn't in New York. I wasn't in these places to like have that front row seat. But it still is a type of trauma that we experienced as a nation, everybody across the board. I mean, I feel like as a world, really, it was something that we all experienced together. And whether you happened to watch it on TV, you were there, you saw what was happening. Maybe you are a first responder, a firefighter, somebody who was actually on the ground searching for people, trying to help do the thing that knew how to do, and nobody expected those towers to fall. And it was the most vivid image of it just coming down. And if you are lucky enough to be somebody who has gone to New York since, and they put up this amazing fountain. It's not a fountain, it's the like eternal, I had the word in my head and now I forgot. It's like an eternal water fountain. It's not a water fountain though. I'll have to get the right wording for this, but I was able to go to New York about, I want to say it was 3 years after, maybe not even that long. But they were still in construction of this amazing memorial that was put up. And there was still a lot of construction going on around the towers to rebuild just this area that they put up. And it was just really, I don't know what words to use for it. Um, it was really cool to be able to go there and experience what was created out of so much devastation. And it took a really long time to get to the point that everything was cleaned up and everything was rebuilt, and this memorial was put in place. And it is the coolest. So it goes in and it just, all you just hear the water flowing, and it's eternal fountain. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up because I feel like I am not doing this justice um by saying what I'm saying. Let me get the right wording for this. um I know it's like a remembrance fountain. Oh gosh. All right. Well, I will have to get the specific words for that. But I know that when I was able, so we actually I went with a group of friends, and we were able, there's a building that's a little bit farther away that you can actually look down into the area of where all of it happened. And again, at this point in time, there was a lot of construction all around there. And the the water fountain, it's not a water fountain. Oh my gosh. And I can't see. I'm trying to find the right words for this. I'm sorry. But I know that this structure that was put up is just absolutely amazing. So if you get a chance, what I'm trying to say is if you get a chance to go to New York, you get a chance to go to the memorial or the museum. Both of them are equally amazing. I highly recommend that you look and see the water fountain, not water fountain. What is it? Waterfall. Oh my gosh. That's what it's called, the waterfall. So the water falls in and down, and it's like there's no bottom. It's so incredible how beautiful. It's the like forever waterfall. And so if you get a chance, go to New York and visit that landmark because it's just beautiful. And I know that when you get there, it is really interesting to be on that space or just be in that space. It definitely brings up a lot of those emotions that you may have felt on that day. And I started looking at social media today already, and I noticed there were lots of posts that were already up it as related to 9/11, and some people that are on my social media channels that I didn't realize how close they actually were to everything that was happening. And so take a moment today to connect with someone, maybe learn about their experience. Because again, we all experience things differently. My experience, even to the same exact situation or event, my viewpoint is going to be different from your viewpoint. And I think that's an important thing to know, especially as we talk about grief and loss. My process is going to be very different from your process and vice versa. There's no one in this world that you could tell them how to process grief. You can't tell them how it's going to be because my experience again is going to be very different. And there may be books out there that give you the written process or the steps of how to go through grief. But honestly, your process is going to be your process, and there's no perfection as we talk about grief and loss. I know for myself, it has been 6 years since my sister passed. I have those moments that I have really high highs that I can talk about her all the time. And then I have those moments that are really low and I don't even want to adult during those days. And I give myself grace. That's one thing that I have learned over time is that I can give myself grace. Every day doesn't have to be perfect. Every day doesn't have to be sad either. I am able to go back and forth between my emotions, and that's okay. Even if it is day one or day 1 million, right? Like, no matter what day I happen to be on through this process, every day is different. And that's just how it is. And a lot of people that I have talked to have had very similar experiences. I have said that the grief and loss journey is kind of like a roller coaster. You have those moments that you're sailing up above and having so much fun. And then you have those moments that you're dropping and your stomach's just dropping. And you can't explain why that day happens to be the day that you don't want to adult or do anything or even function really during that day. There's no rhyme, there's no reason, but it's okay. And it's okay to take those moments. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable. And it's okay to allow the process to be your own. There are words that we should not say to people that might be going through grief or loss. And I'm going to give you a couple of those when we come back from this sponsored spot. So I'll be right back.
Kimberly L. Wilson, also known as Dr. Burnout. You can catch me on Leadership Beyond Burnout on E360 TV on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Vitality Network, where we focus on emerging women leaders and women leaders.
And I'm back. So, quickly, I wanted to also share that this Make Mental Health Matter show is brought to you by one of our sponsors, Dusty DeGroff at Edward Jones, Denver, Colorado. If you want a financial advisor who puts you first, call Dusty. Here is his website. And over here is a little QR code that you can go ahead and scan to get to Dusty specifically. And I promise you, he really is truly awesome. I know him. So if you ever need a connection, just reach out to me also, and I can do a warm connect. So thank you so much, Dusty, for sponsoring Make Mental Health Matter. We do also have other sponsored spots. If you are a company, a business, an organization, maybe you're an artist or a musician or somebody who is trying to get your message out to the world and you need a platform to do that. We have 3 total sponsored spots that are available. So reach out to me and ask me about those also. And here, not that one, this one. Here is the best email to contact me about those. All right. So I was really talking about, before we went to the sponsor breaks, I was talking about 9/11, the day that nobody will forget. If you were alive, if you were old enough to comprehend what was going on, maybe you were in New York or you were in Washington, D.C., or you were in any plane, going anywhere, watching TV, you probably recall that moment vividly. For me, it was the same. And what I wanted to really share, because I already talked about my experience, what I really wanted to share is this thing called grief and loss. This process that we all go through as humans, and it's not a step-by-step process. It's not, you don't perfectly, there's not like a perfect timeline that you go through as you're experiencing grief and loss. But I do know that there are things that can be helpful and there are things that can be hurtful. When somebody, and I know this through experience, it's not just I'm talking about it, right? I know this through experience. I also run a grief and loss support group every single Monday at 12:30 Mountain Standard Time. So it's actually a half an hour after this show is over. We partner with Circles, which is a app that you can download. It's for support, and it's not just grief and loss. There is mental health, veterans, narcissism, divorce, grief and loss, LGBTQ. There's lots and lots and lots of different platforms and groups that you can be a part of, not just my specific group. So, when I talk about grief and loss, these are a lot of things that I hear most often, especially in the support group, is that all of my friends around me tell me I should be over it by now, or people around me in general tell me that I should be over it by now. Over it. I don't know anyone who gets over losing somebody, whether it be a death, whether it be loss of relationship, whether it be a loss of identity. I don't know anybody that gets over it. You may feel differently about it. You may learn how to grow forward, as one of my friends in the past said to me. You may be able to look at it through a different lens, and maybe it's not so sad. Maybe now you're more in celebration, but I don't know anybody that just gets over it. You can talk to people, there's lots of different ways for you to move through this grief or this loss, but it's never going to go away. You're never going to get over it. What we need to start learning as a society is I don't need your opinion. This is my process. This is my timeline. And I'm not ever going to get over my loss. I will learn how to grow forward. I will learn how to move through it versus shoving it down, which is something that we often do as humans because it's too painful to have to go through this process. So sometimes we find ourselves, for me, I was busy the first year after my sister passed. That was my coping mechanism. I knew that that was what I was doing specifically. I was just going. I had a 1.5-year-old that I needed to be a mom to. I had a new relationship. I was doing really amazing at my work. I was in sales at the time and I just had to keep going. That was my coping mechanism. Till I literally was like, I hit a wall, a virtual wall, but I hit a wall. And at that moment, it was super silly. And I know I've talked about this before, but it was super silly. Literally, I was being moved from one team to another team at my corporate job at the time, and I lost it because I loved my supervisor at the time, and I was like, "Well, why am I getting punished?" Because it was a move to a team that we were competing against all the time, and I was like, "I don't want to be on that team. They're like our rivals." And when I was told about this, I lost it. I mean, I just started bawling. And my supervisor at the time happened to be an interim supervisor. It wasn't even like our full supervisor at the time. And he just looked at me and he was like, what do I do here? And I was like, I'm so sorry. I just I don't know what's wrong. And he's like, well, you know that we have employee benefits. And one of the benefits is to be able to go to counseling. You get 10 sessions with our EAP or our employee resources. And I also knew that you could take a leave of absence. So you get, I think it was 6 weeks that you could get paid. I was in sales at the time, so you don't get paid your commission, but it felt like a good option for me to take space and time to go talk to somebody. I wouldn't say that the counselor or therapist that I talked to at that point was uber helpful, but she served her purpose for the moment that I needed. Had I continued, I probably wouldn't have stayed with her. But I didn't realize at that point in time in my career, in my knowledge, in my grief and loss process, that I could advocate for myself and I could call back our EAP services and say, "Hey, I don't really like this person. Can I look to get a different counselor or therapist?" I didn't know that was an option. I just thought whatever they told me was what I had to do. And so that's where I didn't advocate for myself. I was like, okay, well, she's not really like my cup of tea, and I don't really feel like she's necessarily helping me, but I guess she's there for what I needed, and I needed just somebody to talk to that was outside of my circle of friends, that was outside of my family. I needed somebody to talk to. And so I guess for that moment, it was okay. But what I say now, especially knowing what I do and becoming a coach myself, really specializing in trauma and depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation and other mental health challenges, I know now that I may not be your cup of tea. I may not be the person that's right for you, and that's okay. Maybe our personalities don't mesh. And or maybe what you're needing help with, I don't specialize in. There are certain things that I can, in what I do, help with, but there are also other things that I can't. And I know that. So want to make sure first and foremost that you and I together are the right fit. And if we're not, then the cool part is that I have a whole network of other people that I can recommend you or whomever to. And that was just something that I didn't understand at that point. It would have been really great, useful information, but that's what I try to tell people now is the first counselor, therapist, whomever you go to may not be your cup of tea or may not be that person that you're going to mesh with. And it's okay to also say, "Hey, I don't think that we're a good match. Would you have somebody that you could recommend me to?" And if they are ethical, um, coach, therapist, whomever it might be, they will refer you to somebody else. It's not always about you having to go to that one specific person. So just keep that in mind. And I know that for me, again, it was what I needed at that moment. And then it wasn't really until I found a incredibly supportive community of people that really 100% lifted me up. And they provided the support that I didn't know that I really truly needed. And that was the catalyst for everything for me. It was finally that moment that I could actually break through and move through my grief and my loss. And ultimately, I forgave my sister, forgave myself. I didn't know that was something I needed. And it really truly was that catalyst to be able to move forward, break out of my comfort zone, get out of my own head. And really, the creation of BCC Evolution happened at that moment. And I continue to be a part of this community. I still have people in my life that are still part of this community. It is one of the most incredible communities that I've ever known, with supportive people that I could literally tap into at this moment if I needed them. Community is so important, especially as you go through grief and loss. You don't have to go at it alone. There are lots of people out there that want to help you. There are lots of ways or support groups that you can get help. It can be possibly on circles like we do. There is also some other really great ones that I have found are 7 cups. It's like the number 7 and see you here. I can pop it up here so you can see. 7cups.com. They have listeners 24/7. So this over here, 7cups.com. That is a great one that I have found. The other one, so the app, it is again circles, but it's like circle support. Circle support. Just popping up all kinds of things over here. So those are really great ones. And then if you need any additional ones, you can always go to bccevolution.org. We have a whole page of resources. So there are resources for specific demographics. Women, men, LGBTQ, substance use, mental health, crisis, non-crisis, professionals, coaches, speakers. We have a whole slew of resources on that page and are always looking for more. So if you know somebody that can be a resource, send them our way too. Again, we're building what's called a trusted resource hub. So this is the actual direct link to our trusted resource hub. But community is huge, huge, huge. When you have a community of people around you, again, that lift you up instead of dragging you down, those people that say, shouldn't you be over it already? Oh my gosh, you talk about that person all the time. Are you still hung up on them? I don't understand why you can't get over this. That's not helpful. Not helpful at all. How about we flip the script? How would you feel if somebody said that to you? How would you feel if somebody told you how to process the loss of a person, a pet, a relationship, an identity that you thought once was and is no longer? How would you feel if somebody told you to just get over it or rub some dirt on it or go talk to somebody else? I mean, that can be pretty hurtful too, is like, I don't care, go talk to somebody else. Whoa. How about instead say, hey, I'm not really sure what to say, but I would really like to support you. Would you like me to listen, or would you like me to give you some advice or find some solutions? How would you like me to help you specifically? And maybe they don't know, and that's okay. But how can we just be more compassionate, more empathetic, and really shift and reframe how we look at specific situations? It's going to make the difference in somebody's life. And sometimes people aren't ready to talk, and that's okay too. What you can do in those situations is just make sure, how I talk about it is, we're planting seeds. We're letting people know that we're here when they're ready to talk to us. But maybe now's not the time, and maybe I'm not the person they want to talk to. And that's okay. Maybe we don't have the rapport. Maybe they don't trust me fully yet. Maybe we just haven't built that relationship for them to talk to me specifically. I have found over time that most people come to me and they just spill everything, which is totally fine. I've been told that I'm a really great listener, and I'm not going to place any judgment on you or anything that you say or comes out of your mouth. That's not my job. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to listen and be that safe space for you and give you that opportunity to say whatever happens to come to your mind. And I may or may not have any answers. I may or may not just sit there and shake my head and maybe ask a couple questions that pop into my head that may or may not be useful. But either way, I'll allow you that safe space to be able to share what it is. And I will never impose my thoughts onto yours. My way is not the right way. Your way may not be the right way for me. I have my specific model of my world that I look at through my own eyes, my own lens. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but what we can do as humans is understand that we all experience things differently. We're all trying to do the best that we can with the resources that we have available. Some of us have more resources and some of us don't. Some of us are able to get that information at the tips of our fingertips. Some of us have to reach a little bit farther. But whatever it looks like for you is perfect in your world. And I may let you know some things that I've experienced throughout life, which may be helpful or not. If it's something that you need to get that rapport or understanding that maybe I understand a little bit more about what you're going through specifically, but I will never know fully. And that's the whole thing, is that I will never fully understand what somebody else is going through. Because your story is your story. Your life is your life. Your process, your brain processes different than my brain processes. And there's no right, there's no wrong. It's just is what it is. And that may not be the answer that you're searching for. But if you have an open mind to be able to look at what other people are going through, then you may start to see things through a different lens. I'm not perfect at this by any means. I try to be aware of what is coming out of my mouth. I try to be aware of the words that I write. I try to be aware of the collaborations and the partnerships, especially that my nonprofit does. But I'm not always going to get everything perfect. I'm going to learn from every single situation and experience and make a change to hopefully be a better person and a better listener and a better communicator from those experiences and those lessons. And I know throughout time, especially through this journey of grief and loss that I have experienced from losing my sister and so many others, even after and before her, that there's not a perfect process. There's not a perfect moment. There's not a perfect timeline. There's no book that will give you the exact steps that you go through. This is your experience. This is what you go through, and that's okay. And those people that try to tell you how you should experience something and give you judgment or tell you to get over it or move on or whatever those words are that they use, maybe they're better left in the past. Maybe they don't belong in your future or your present now. And that's okay to leave them in the past. I know that it's very different, especially when you talk about your job. You're like, well, I have to go to this job every single day, and all they do is see me cry, or all they do is see me struggle, but nobody says anything to me. They know what I'm going through, but nobody even cares to even ask how I'm doing. Well, maybe you need to be a little bit more forward with what you need because we're not mind readers. I'm not a mind reader. And most people in this world are not mind readers. So we also have to be able to ask for what we need and or tell people what we need specifically at that moment. Hey, I'm having a really bad day today, and I would just really appreciate if I can do my work without having to do XYZ. I am having a wonderful day today. Like, I really want to talk about all the happy things. I want to talk about like what we're going to do next week. I can't promise you that I'm actually going to show up, but I love the conversations that we're starting to have. I want to laugh. I want to have fun. Life has changed. It's forever going to change. Like we talked about earlier, that day on 9/11, the nation as a whole changed. We watched this tragedy happen right in front of our eyes and we changed. It will never go back to how it was prior to 9/11. You can't take away that experience, but we've learned how to move forward to the present where we are now. It's not perfect. It's probably never going to be perfect. And life has changed, and that's okay. When you have the loss of a person, when you have the loss of a pet, when you have any experience that you happen to go through and have to go through the journey of grief and loss, life changes. People can change too. Who I was before my sister passed is very different from who I am today. And I can say that because I know and I accept who I am now versus who I was then. It's just like my nonprofit has made all these changes within the past 5 years. When I started it, it is very different now than it was then. The direction has changed, and that's okay. So I invite you to, as we remember this day, what have you noticed that has changed in your life? Maybe you are somebody who is going through the process of grief and loss, or maybe you still remember that day very vividly. Maybe you lost somebody in those towers, on one of those planes, or in Washington D.C. What have you noticed that has changed in your life? What's good? What's bad? What's different? Find out, ask questions of others and see what their experiences are. Have a conversation with somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time. You don't know how they have changed. You don't know what they have been through. You don't know where they are at in their life now. But why not give them a chance to just have that conversation? And if you need extra support, if you need a place to go, if you need somebody to talk to that will simply just listen, you can always reach out to me at my website. Support at bccevolution.org is the email, and the website is bccevolution.org. Myself or one of my amazing board members, volunteers, event committee people are here to support, and or if we cannot, we will find somebody that can also help you. So today, I just want to acknowledge and remember those that we lost on this day on 9/11. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Infinity Waterfall, that's what it's called, the Infinity Waterfall, take a chance to remember this day and connect with somebody that might be around there too. You never know what their experience was like, and how cool would that be to just hear somebody else's experience of that same day. It was 2001 when the attacks happened. And so, again, there's a lot that has changed in New York. There's a lot that has changed probably with you as time has moved forward. Time is something that doesn't stop. And for that day, for several moments, it felt like there was a pause across the world, across the nation. But the cool part is we all came together after this and realized how important it is for connection, for understanding, for uniting as one, and supporting each other. There were people that didn't know anybody that was near there, but they were still searching. They were still volunteering their time to try to unbury people. They were trying to help in any way that they possibly could, because we united for quite some time after this happened. So, how do we get back to uniting as humans and remember that we all experience things differently and connection is key? So, again, I invite you to connect with somebody today at some point during this month. You can connect with me, my team, or if you have questions or need any help talking to somebody, connect with BCC Evolution. But I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch the show. I do this every single Monday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. On Wednesdays, I have Warrior Wednesday guests who share their story and their experience, whatever they've been through in life. And it definitely is that platform that you can learn more about people around you, what they've gone through, what experiences they have been through, and then that piece of hope that there's a reason to keep going, hope that there's a way through, the hope that whatever you've been through doesn't define you. But I hope that this was helpful for you, just learning and understanding a little bit more about grief and loss, and there's no perfect process. September is National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. BCC Evolution, our goal this year is to get more Warrior for Mental Health monthly donors. So if you are somebody who is able to help and support BCC Evolution, please go and sign up as a Warrior for Mental Health. It's only $19 or more per month. And that goes back to all of our education for mental health. We teach people these tools, this information, these types of resources in actual classes, but then also via here on the show, me speaking, any coaching, therapy, all of that, all those collaborations that we have put together. Part of our Warriors for Mental Health, your monthly donations go towards all the programs that we have created. So this month, if you donate within the month of September, which again is National Suicide Awareness Prevention Month, you will get a voucher that you can use to take one of our mental health first aid classes, which teaches you how to recognize, identify, and help somebody who is in need if they have a mental health substance use challenge, or really learning and understanding more about non-crisis and crisis situations. So, and you can use that voucher within 6 months. So again, go sign up today. You may have noticed the commercial or the sponsored spot that is in all the show. This one today is different from what you've seen the last couple of months. But that really truly is the way to support BCC Evolution and all the incredible things that we do within mental health and suicide prevention. So thank you so much for watching. I am grateful that you took the time and share this with anybody that you think might need the information. And again, I do a free grief and loss support group every single Monday at 12:30 Mountain Time via the Circles app, and that is something that you can also find on our website, the information how to connect up to that. So, thank you so much, and I will see you on Wednesday.